The New York Yankees, today we start our position previews for the 2025 season, and we're starting with the bullpen. The New York Yankees have always had a strong bullpen. They've done an excellent job in recent years of assembling great bullpens, even if they don't invest a lot into that group. But this year is a little bit different than previous years. While we're used to seeing, low-cost relievers and no-name guys become studs, the New York Yankees brought in some serious firepower. They brought in Devin, who is a top 5 reliever in the sport. They bring in Fernando, Cruz, who's got some of the best off-speed pitches in the game. And they bring back Loaisiga, who, when healthy, is absolutely electric. They bring back Luke Weaver. They just picked up his club option. They have a lot of their nasty relievers from last season. They do have some turnover in that bullpen, some faces who haven't returned or are not returning, most notably Clay Holmes. And we're going to talk about all of that and more. But before we get into everything, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Check out Fireside Yankees on all your favorite social media platforms. And of course, you guys can check us out on EmpireSportsMedia.com. For our social medias, we've got Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and of course this YouTube page. Handles are at Fireside Yankees, except for Instagram where it's at Fireside.Yankees. And if you're watching this again on YouTube, over 50% of our viewers are not subscribed. So if you could press that subscribe button right now, that would be great. It's free. And if you press that notification bell, you'll be kept up to date on all of our uploads. We've got tons of fire content coming out in the next few weeks. Tons of content from Pinstripe Pride that we're going to be launching out over the next few weeks as well. We're going to be going to spring training for a week. We've got tons of fun stuff on the horizon. But without further ado, let's get started talking about this bullpen. Now, let's talk about the departures, the guys who are either A, still free agents, or B, have signed contracts elsewhere. We have Clay Holmes, who has signed a 3-year deal with the New York Mets. You have Tommy Kahnle, who signed a 1-year deal with the Detroit Tigers. Tim Mayza signed a 1-year with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And Tim Hill is still a free agent. Now, could this video be updated with Tim Hill down the road? Could Tim Hill sign during this episode? Could Tim Hill sign minutes after this is released or while you're watching this? Absolutely. The Yankees have mutual interest in bringing back Tim Hill, but until he returns, we're going to act as if he's not here. In regards to Tommy Kahnle and Clay Holmes, look, I know Tim Mayza is also part of this group, but he didn't really factor into last year's group much, so I'm going to just count him as, he left, he was here for a few innings, it was cool. I hope he has, good success in Pittsburgh. But in regards to Holmes and Kahnle, Holmes was obviously the Yankee closer for the last 3 seasons, basically, and 2022, 2023 was an above-average reliever, not just in terms of his run prevention metrics or his underlying data, but he also had a positive win probability added, indicating that, he was really good at run prevention, and he did it in high-leverage situations. But this season, Clay Holmes was really, really bad in high-leverage situations. He had one of the worst win probability addeds in baseball. So in terms of, results, you could say his ERA was good, and that is useful, and I think he will be good with the Mets. But in terms of kind of weighing it towards the context of winning games, like in the 9th inning, in a big-time situation, if you weigh his performance and you, again, factor in the leverage or the context of the situation by the game, he was a net negative for the Yankees in the regular season. He stepped it up in the postseason, though, and I think the postseason ultimately should be not more important than regular season, but it should make up for a lackluster regular season if the team has playoff success, and you're a huge reason for it. Holmes was a huge reason for some of their playoff success, so I'm not going to discredit his entire 2024 season, but I think we can all sit here and say the Yankees didn't lose a lot with losing Holmes in terms of just what he was last year. If you just look at projected performance, again, I expect him to be a good pitcher. I actually expect him to have success as a starter, and if he doesn't, I think he'll fit in perfectly in that Mets bullpen. But end of the day, look, Clay Holmes was awesome for a few years. He wasn't as awesome last year. I wish him the best of luck, but I would say in terms of the closer spot, which we'll get to, the Yankees made a pretty firm upgrade. Now, for Tommy Kahnle, really good relative to leverage context, so win probability added, he was good there. Good ERA, good strikeout rates, good ground ball rates. But if you guys remember my video I did earlier in the offseason where I talked about 5 guys not coming back, I put Tommy Kahnle here. And the reason I put him here was because his fastball velocity declined from last year, his changeup velocity declined from last year, and his whiff rates declined from last year. So we're talking about someone who's not getting as many whiffs and isn't throwing as hard. I would not expect the Yankees to invest in that kind of player. And considering the churn of right-handed relievers or the logjam of right-handed relievers they have, and especially some of the guys who have become available to them, who they've acquired, I certainly don't regret the decision not to bring him back. I don't think he's going to be bad. I think he's going to be pretty good in Detroit. I think that ballpark actually fits him very well because he does have a little bit of an issue with the home run ball. I think he'll actually be awesome with Detroit. I think Tigers fans are going to come to love this guy. Kahnle is super energetic, great guy, phenomenal dude. I'm so happy he came back to the Yankees. I'm really thankful and appreciative for his time here, and I hope he has a ton of success in Detroit, and hopefully enough that, maybe he comes back because he seems to always find his way back to the Yankees. He was originally drafted by the Yankees. He was born in New York, so all the best of luck to Mr. Kahnle, and I think Detroit got a good one. Again, I just didn't think he was going to come back. Now, in regards to the Yankees' additions, who did they add to the roster for the bullpen? I don't know if you would consider Loaisiga an addition. He's more so a returning guy, but he didn't pitch a lot last year, and he's supposed to pitch a lot more this year. We say this every year. If he's healthy, he's good, but I just want to emphasize how true that is. Loaisiga is awesome when healthy. He's one of the best relievers in baseball when healthy. His stuff is gross. His sinker generates tons of movement. I wrote an article about him, and one of the things I want to see the Yankees do with Jonathan Loaisiga is cut down that sinker usage. His sinker just gets way too much play. It's featured too heavily in that arsenal. He doesn't throw enough of his secondaries, and the secondary I really want to target here is that curveball. It has a stuff plus since 2021 of 156. It's top 5 in terms of weighted on-base average allowed among curveballs. It has a ridiculous whiff rate. And quite honestly, it's one of the more unique curveballs in baseball. Being thrown with really good velocity, not a lot of vertical drop, and not a lot of horizontal movement, but it has the movement profile of more of like a sharp slider, a baby sweeper, something. It's just this kind of amalgamation of a lot of different breaking balls. It's got that heavy topspin of a curveball. It's got, the firm action of a gyro slider. It's got the horizontal movement or the lateral movement of a sweeper. It is a combination of a lot of really good traits from a lot of different breaking pitches. So this pitch is key. Loaisiga can go from like 67% sinker usage to around 55% sinker usage and get that curveball usage up a little bit, even that changeup usage up a little bit. I think we'll see more swings and misses. He's been excellent at keeping the ball on the ground. He's remarkable when healthy. He has a sub-3 ERA since 2021. Again, that's just being healthy, just being on the mound. And he had that incredible run in 2022 in the postseason where every single time the Yankees needed a reliever, they called on him, they used him aggressively, and he showed up and he showed out. So Loaisiga will start the year on the IL. That's why I'm talking about him first. He will not be on the opening day roster. He still has to recover from his arm surgery. He should be back at some point in May, but you'll just kind of I don't want that to be like a firm deadline. That's just kind of what's rumored. Deadlines and a guy coming back from injury, you want to always be as careful as possible. You want to update that timeline as the guy progresses, and you don't want to rush him back. He has to come back in June. He comes back in June. Whatever it's going to take for him to be the healthiest and the most effective, that's what I want. If I get 4 months of Jonathan Loaisiga, 3 months of Jonathan Loaisiga at about $5 million, I think that's a steal. I think he's that good. I think when he's on, he's about as good as Luke Weaver. I think that's how good I think he is when he's healthy. But again, he'll start the season on the IL, so I will not factor him into the projected opening day bullpen, but he is back, so I wanted to talk about him. Now let's talk about the other two additions who will be here on opening day. And we're going to start it off with Devin Williams. Now, Devin Williams was acquired for Caleb Durbin and Nestor Cortez, and Devin Williams is one of the best relievers in baseball. And it's not like Luke Weaver is one of the best relievers in baseball, but he's not a top 5 reliever. Devin Williams is a top 5 reliever. He is one of the best in the game. He's one of the best in the business. He's one of the most consistent in the business, and he strikes out everybody. Devin Williams this past season only appeared in 22 games due to a lower back issue that he had that sidelined him for most of the year, but when he was healthy, a 1.25 ERA, a 2.11 expected ERA, a 43.2% strikeout rate, that came with a 12.5% walk rate, a 0.42 home runs per 9. Again, the underlying metrics here are remarkable. The batted ball data against is remarkable. The swing and miss numbers are remarkable. The stuff plus scores are remarkable. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on about what he does well. The walks, look, they're high, but I'll take walks as your deficiency instead of either home runs or a lack of strikeouts. So those walks are offset by a strikeout rate that's always hovering around 40%. It's been above 40% some years. This year it was above 40%. But this is a guy who's just remarkable. And one of the things he did this season was throw his four-seamer a little more. That four-seamer up in the zone with his lower arm angle and good velocity is devastating. It catches up to hitters a lot faster than people think too because of his crazy extension. He gets over 7 feet of extension. So that 94.7 on that four-seamer feels more like 95.7, maybe even 96. So that four-seamer is absolutely gross. It looks like he's handing it off to you at the plate. And with good, two-plane movement, it's got good horizontal movement. It's got a decent amount of rise. And again, just released from a lower arm slot. It's a devastating pitch. You've got the airbender. I mean, the airbender doesn't need introduction. It is one of the best pitches in baseball, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. No, one of the best changeups. None of that. One of the best pitches in baseball. A 180 stuff plus is just ridiculous on a pitch that gets used as much as that changeup. It looks like it's not real. It's got the most movement for any changeup in baseball. It's just disgusting, man. It's really one of the best pitches in baseball. It's also not a breaking ball, but it's one of the best pitches I've just ever seen. So, quite honestly, when you add a pitch like that to your bullpen, you've got to be excited. His ERA has never been above 2.50 over the course of a season where he was actively used. His rookie year in 2019, he was used 13 times, just kind of like randomly, sparingly. But since then, 0.33, 2.50, 1.93, 1.53, 1.25. He has more seasons with a below 2 ERA than seasons with an ERA above 2. That's just ridiculous. And that's exactly what the Yankees need. And kind of what I mentioned with Clay Holmes, where his ERA was good. His FIP was good. But his numbers in high leverage situations were not good overall. And so he actually cost the Yankees a lot of games because he was good enough to kind of convert saves in situations where the Yankees kind of already had the game tucked away. Or he would blow games that the Yankees just kind of should have had tucked away. Now, not all of those blown saves were his fault. Some of them were, but not all of them. But in the case of Devin Williams, he leads baseball in win probability added since 2020. Again, that's not a stat that is sticky. You can have bad luck in high leverage situations, especially when we're talking about relievers. And we did see that with Holmes last year, but we're comparing last year's production, not last year's expected results, to this year's production, not their expected results. So if you could talk about that production again from last year, a negative win probability added, can the Yankees make that positive in 2025 from their closer spot? I would be shocked, and I really mean shocked, if Devin Williams had a negative win probability added this year. And if he does, it's just something that would go horribly wrong. It would be kind of an omen for what would be potentially a very ugly season for the Yankees. But again, if they can convert saves, they were about 500 one-run games. Can they be a little better than that? Can they win those tight games? Can they win those close games? Can they put games away they should have put away? The Yankees underperformed their Pythagorean or their expected win loss total. Can they match it this year? Can they match their expected number? Can they surpass that expected number? They've done it in years where they've had really good bullpens. I think if this year they can have a really good bullpen, they can do the same thing. As for Fernando Cruz, the other addition the Yankees got this winter, he's another guy who has just one of the best off-speed pitches in baseball with his splitter. This past season, he put up a 4.86 ERA, a 3.27 FIP, and a 2.67 expected FIP with a 4.05 expected ERA. Now, the problem with Fernando Cruz is he just gets hit really hard. At least this year, he was hit really hard. He had a 1.22 home runs per 9 allowed, a 9.8% barrel rate, an expected weight on base average on contact north of 400. He just got crushed. Like, batters were doing a lot of damage against him. It's not like he lost fastball velocity. It's not like his stuff got worse. It's not like his splitter got hit any harder. His fastballs just aren't very predictable. And quite frankly, I don't really know what the Reds were doing when they traded him. I like Jose Trevino a lot. I just think this was a little bit premature to trade a guy who has really good stuff and is pre-arbitration for a 1 year of a catcher. And if that was all they could get for Fernando Cruz, I'd be stunned. I really think they didn't do their homework with this trade. I think the Yankees did. I think the Yankees are getting a pitcher who, even without improvements, is amazing away from the Great American Ballpark, which is notoriously hitter-friendly compared to Yankee Stadium, which is notoriously a little more pitcher-friendly, or has been in recent years. If you look at his numbers away from Cincinnati, he has a 3.75 ERA in his career. with a 31.5% strikeout rate. If you look at his numbers at home, he has a 5.26 ERA, 40.6% strikeout rate. Not sure what the discrepancy is there, but 1.31 home runs per 9 at home. And then on the road, that number drops to 0.63. So does getting away from Great American Ballpark, does that right there do it for him? Is that one of the bigger changes for him? Maybe, but the other thing that's a huge change is the fact that the Yankees are pretty good with guys who have kind of crappy fastballs or crappy cutters and kind of alter it or do things to improve it. The Yankees with Luke Weaver last year, they had someone who, he was someone who didn't have a good four-seam fastball. The Yankees altered his grip, got some more vertical ride on it. Same thing with his cutter, altered his grip, got a little more hump on it, a little more ride, made it a more viable weapon. And you look at Fernando Cruz, his arm angle, it's pretty standard for right-handed pitchers, so he's not going to fool anyone with that fastball. Even though it gets a decent amount of ride, he's going to have to be creative and figure out ways to improve that pitch. A pitch I could see returning for him is his slider, which he used sparingly in 2022, but it had great results when he used it. It's a pitch that gets, decent vertical drop and some decent lateral movement. It's just another weapon that isn't his four-seamer. And I think the goal here is to just try and get away from that four-seamer. Can they improve the cutter? Because their cutter was terrible. I mean, batters slugged 765 with a 333 average against that pitch. That pitch has to be better. It has to be better in order for him to have success in 2025. And I think ultimately it will, because I think ultimately the Yankees will get they'll either dial down the cutter or get it out of his pitch mix, or they'll find a way to, maybe improve the pitch shape or give him a different pitch. I don't really know what they're going to do specifically, but there's so many avenues in which they can improve Fernando Cruz. There's so many things they can do to tinker the arsenal, and there's such a dominant weapon with that splitter that, quite honestly, it's just a matter of being league average and everything else. He does not have to be a good fastball guy, a good cutter guy, a good sinker guy. He just has to be an average one or a close enough to average one, because that splitter is one of the best pitches I've ever seen. Now, the other guys in the bullpen are returning names. You have Ian Hamilton, you have Luke Weaver, Jake Cousins, Mark Leiter Jr., but there is a new name who wasn't acquired this winter, but should be healthy and pitch for the Yankees to major league level this year for the first time, and that's JT Brubaker, who does not have minor league options, who the Yankees tendered a contract to, and who they've kept despite not really being healthy over the last few years. Now, Brubaker spent a year in AAA with the Yankees. He was battling back from Tommy John surgery. They have not been able to get him to get to the major leagues because of, again, health-related issues. He had a setback. He had a calf strain that kind of popped up when he was rehabbing. And when he, came back, it was late September. The Yankees weren't going to throw him in the bullpen or anything like that. So Brubaker is an interesting arm because he doesn't really have anything that stands out. He has a 44% ground ball rate in his career, a 23.3% strikeout rate. It's a little bit better than the average. A 7.8% walk rate. Again, that's a little bit better than the average. But he gets hit pretty hard. Again, a 1.45 home runs per 9. How can the Yankees make that better? One of the things I think they can do is just move him to the bullpen. The Pirates have used him as a starter. I do not view him as a starting pitcher. I view him as a reliever. The other thing is to continue to work on this new sweeper he was throwing. I wrote an article about this on EmpireSportsMedia.com, but JT Brubaker was throwing a brand new sweeping slider. I think that pitch could be a very nice weapon for him, especially when paired with a sharp slider that already gets some good results, and a sinker that has good movement. He has really a good command of that sinker. He can backdoor it to lefties. He can paint it inside to righties. His command has always been above average, and I think the Yankees should use that or utilize that to try to get him at least league average in terms of stuff plus. And getting him in a bullpen role might be able to do that because he sits about 93 miles per hour on his fastball as a starter. In the bullpen, can that be 94? Can that be 95? If it's say 95 miles an hour with that good tailing action and that new sweeper, then you've got a guy with a 95 mile per hour primary fastball, a really good breaking ball, because that sweeping breaking ball, I don't know what you call it, but because I don't know if he's going to call it a curveball, a sweeper, a slider, I don't really know, but I think it's a sweeper. If he has that pitch going, it grades out really well and stuff. Plus, he's got his gyro slider. A gyro slider is just like those bullet sliders, like Garrett Cole's slider, if you wanted to use a comparison there. But that slider has been a pretty effective pitch for him. It has good sharp bite. It has good vertical drop. It's thrown pretty firm. Again, can the Yankees can the Yankees make those bump ups in terms of velocity, and then can they keep him healthy? Because if they can do those things, I think we're talking about someone who can be a productive reliever and be last year's Luke Weaver. Look out for JT Brubaker to be the New York Yankees 2025 Luke Weaver, a failed starter who they turned into a reliever, a guy who, quite honestly, I think too many people have counted out because he just didn't pitch last year. Now, the returning guys like Mark Leiter Jr., Jake Cousins, Ian Hamilton, Luke Weaver. In the case of Cousins and Hamilton, they profile very similar to me. They don't have similar pitch mixes, but they're both guys who I expect to get a lot of whiffs from, who I expect to see on the IL because both of them spent time on the IL last year. Cousins appeared in 37 games. Hamilton appeared in 35. But they have really good stuff plus scores. 120 for Ian Hamilton, 112 for Jake Cousins. They get a lot of punchies. They can keep the ball on the ground a decent bit. They serve the role of just, they're so damn good that they would be high leverage guys on another team. And for the Yankees, they're middle relief guys. They're not the one or the two in that bullpen. And in the case of Cousins, if he's as good as what he was last year, oh my God, right? Like, he was awesome last year. The Yankees kind of find him out of nowhere. His slider is nasty. The sinker, he learned how to pitch with it a little bit more. He was really good upon his return to the big leagues. After being sent down in April, the Yankees are like, nope, don't want anything to do with this after his first two appearances. But after returning to the team in late June, he was one of their best relievers. He put up a 2.31 ERA, 49 strikeouts in 35 innings pitched, and his sinker just progressively got better throughout the season. He started leaning on it more. Again, he figured out the command of it, attacking it inside to lefties, away to righties, and stealing strikes and setting up that slider, which is one of the most vicious pitches in baseball. He specifically improved against lefties, and I think we're going to see a really good year from Jake Cousins again, if he can just stay healthy. If I get 40 appearances of Jake Cousins, I'll be happy. If I get 35 appearances of Jake Cousins, I'll be happy. I just need enough Jake Cousins where I have him in the regular season, and then I have him in the postseason. If those things are true, if I get both those things, bullpen should be in pretty good shape. Now, Ian Hamilton, he had a lot more pronounced injury issues because, unlike Cousins, Hamilton ended up missing the World Series because of his shoulder issues. Now, here's the thing. If the Yankees had Ian Hamilton, do they win the World Series? Probably not, but does game one go a little differently? Do they feel comfortable going to Hamilton perhaps a little bit earlier in the game? Do they get into some of the jams they got into? I don't really know. Like, do they go to Canley or do they go to Hamilton in certain spots? Again, I don't know. Is Canley overused by the end of the series? And, you know, if you remember, Canley ends up playing a huge role in blowing game 5. Again, I don't know. There's a lot of I don't know here, but Hamilton is really important for the Yankees' bullpen depth, or just their depth in general. Last year was a step back from an awesome 2023 season where he had a 2.64 ERA and a 28.9% strikeout rate. We saw a decrease in strikeout rate, a decrease in ground ball rate, but an improvement in the walk rate, and an improvement in the barrel rate. So how do you take that? How do you take that data and say, what does he have to do? He just has to stay healthy. Again, he just has to stay healthy. Health plays a huge role in command. Doesn't just play a huge role in stuff. It plays a massive role in command. And Hamilton would see a massive degradation in fastball velocity the deeper he got into an outing. So I wonder if that is tied again to the injury issue. Now, when he came back from injury, because he missed basically the entire summer from June 16th to September 9th, he did not appear in a game. But when he came back to the Yankees, 1.13 ERA, he struck on 11 batters in 8 innings. He had a 40.7% strikeout rate. He was awesome, and his fastball velocity upticked. He was throwing a little harder. He was sitting 97 miles per hour. Everything just felt a little bit sharper for Hamilton. The stuff plus improved to 127 over that stretch. I mean, he was nasty. Look, when Hamilton is on, when Hamilton is healthy, when Hamilton's command, when he's able to kind of command the slider down, that Slambio, I don't know if you want to classify it more as a changeup or a slider. I classify it more as a slider because Fangraphs does and StatCast does, so I'm going to do it as well. I'm no smarter than them. But that pitch, when it's located down and in to lefties and down and away to righties, is unhittable. The fastballs, when they're located well, they're really tough to beat as well, and they'll generate a lot of soft contact. Again, it's health, and health. If Ian Hamilton can stay healthy, we're going to see a very dominant year from him, and he will be a very productive reliever for this team. And again, this is a guy who could be a high leverage weapon for the Yankees, but is going to be pushed to middle relief because he's not going to be required to be their number 2 guy. He's also another guy who performs very well in high leverage situations. This past season, even though he struggled for parts of the year and had a higher ERA than last year, he actually had a better win probability added at plus 1.54. And that's because guys like him who can generate a ton of whiffs are going to be super valuable in high leverage situations because they can get out of jams without advancing runners. They're the type of guys where it's runners on second and third and one out, and they can strike out the next guy and then get the other guy out and not let a run in, versus ground ball guys who can't really do that. So that's the value in whiff. whiffs. In high leverage situations, I need whiffs. And Hamilton is, of course, capable of getting a ground ball because of his hard sinker. So it's the best of both worlds. And Cousins is also capable of getting a ground ball too. So I classify these two guys together because they're guys who I feel good about in 2025. I don't have any concerns about them outside of just health. Just stay healthy, you'll be fine. Now, one of the more interesting names in this bullpen from the returning group is Mark Leiter Jr., who kind of had the inverse of a lot of guys, like kind of a similar arc for as Clay Holmes, except his regular season numbers are way worse. Mark Leiter Jr. was awful for the Yankees when he got here. He had a 4.98 ERA, a 2.49 home runs per nine after a 0.50 with the Cubs. He looked like he was going to be awesome with the Yankees when he first got here. Your prototypical, doesn't allow home runs, doesn't walk a ton of guys and strikes out everybody. He should get better with the Yankees. His ground ball rate decreased to 39%. His sinker was way worse with the Yankees. There was just a lot of this guy isn't very good. And the Yankees did not include him on the postseason roster, which makes sense. He didn't belong there. And then out of nowhere, Ian Hamilton gets hurt. Mark Leiter Jr. is back. He's immediately thrust into a big situation, and he just became a monster for the Yankees in the postseason. In 6 appearances, he had a 1.69 ERA, ugly walk rate. He walked 5 batters and struck out 5. That's not very pretty. But he had a 53.8% ground ball rate, which was good, getting the ground balls back, and a positive win probability added. He was really big for the Yankees in the ALCS in those final few games. He got some big timeouts. He kept the Yankees in games that they shouldn't have been in, and he was big in the World Series as well. Again, big time in games and got them out of big time jams that he really had no business getting them out of. He came into games as a white flag, and he walked out of them keeping the Yankees in a game or preserving their lead. And for that, Mark Leiter Jr., in my opinion, I'm going to give him the clean slate. Look, you had good strikeout numbers last year, 33.6%. We're going to talk about the strikeouts to kind of round this episode up, but strikeouts are up. Walk rate is not high. Can you get the home run per 9 back to where it was with the Cubs? Because if he can do that, 2 thumbs up. He'll be good next year. Good stuff. Good splitter. Good cutter. I don't know. I'm not going to write him off just yet, but if he has a bad regular season, I wouldn't be so shocked if the Yankees cut him because he's got just 2 years of control left and no minor league options. They cannot send him down. Now you have Luke Weaver, who is the final kind of piece to the puzzle here, and he moves from a setup role. Let's redo the timeline here a little bit. He moves from a depth reliever, backup starter, to a setup man, to the team closer, and now he's back to being a setup man. Now, Weaver last year was incredible. A 2.89 ERA across 84 innings. He had 103 strikeouts. He had a 31.1% strikeout rate, a 7.9% walk rate. The strikeout walk home run ratios are really good. His whiff rates are really good. His stuff plus scores were incredible, and he got better throughout the season. The guy got better as a closer. He was remarkable in the postseason. He had a 1.76 ERA and a 28.6% strikeout rate. He pitched in he had 15 and a third innings pitched. He appeared in 12 games. He was reliable, durable, all of those things and more. He tossed nearly 100 innings in the regular and postseason combined for the Yankees. He was awesome. He was awesome. The Yankees should be very happy with the signing. They should be very happy with the contract. They should be very happy with the production. And if they can get, a slightly worse version of last year, he's going to still be really good. So some of the changes he made: improved velocity, improved vertical break on the fastball, improved changeup, everything just got better. The Yankees took everything, they fine-tuned it. He was a whiff machine. He got better throughout the season. He saw velocity spikes. He saw improvements in his pitch usage. He started tinkering around with his cutter a little bit more and trying to make it a little more of a slider and a cutter, kind of manipulating the shape of the pitch depending on what he had to do. This was a remarkable season for Luke Weaver. I am beyond happy with what we got from him last year, and now as a setup man, he is one of the best setup men in baseball. Now, to overview this group and to talk about them as a whole and kind of round this episode up, the New York Yankees have a bullpen that should strike out way more batters than they did last year. They're around league average in terms of strikeout rate as a bullpen, and as a result, I think they'll be better in high-leverage situations and have a better ERA. The Yankees last year were not, bad as a bullpen, but they weren't dominant. I think this bullpen has an opportunity to be dominant, and again, in those one-run games, in those late-game situations, this is where you want a dominant bullpen. It felt like the Yankees' bullpen kind of ran out of gas last year. It wasn't awesome in the World Series. It was a little bit too shaky, and it wasn't just errors. It was a lot of unforced mistakes. walking Gavin Lux in game 1. That can't happen if you're Jake Cousins. Tommy Canley, his performance in game 5. Can't happen, right? That kind of stuff, it cost them the World Series, right? So if the Yankees want to have a stronger bullpen, getting more whiffs was a must. They did that. I know they still need a lefty. They do not have a lefty for that bullpen. I like Tim Hill. I would like to see him back, but I would be more than open to bringing in someone who can induce or coax a little more swing and miss if that's possible. Danny Coulomb is out there. Maybe the Padres trade someone like Yuki Matsui. There are so many interesting trade scenarios and free agent scenarios with the bullpen. I've talked about Andrew Nardi. I don't know if that's going to be available, but if it is, I would love that. And then again, you can always just bring back Tim Hill. I would be happy with that as well. This bullpen should be very good. They're projected to be the second best bullpen according to Fangraphs entering the 2025 season, and they've got depth as well. Clayton Beeter could come up and be a guy. Will Warren could come up and be a guy for this bullpen. I really like Yerry De Los Santos. They brought in Michael Arias, who has really good stuff. No idea where the ball's going. Yuenchis Gomez is out of minor league options. He could get traded or factor into this bullpen group. There are just so many fun scenarios where this bullpen gets some help from new guys, established guys, returning guys, and some young kids as well. The dark horse I want to mention for this position group is Eric Reselman, who I believe is the Yankees' best reliever prospect. He's got some of the best stuff in the organization, a +4 seam fastball, a plus slider, and a plus changeup. Watch out for him to dominate in 2025 and potentially earn a spot on the team. With that being said, though, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate you guys checking out Fireside Yankees and sticking through to the end of the video. If you like today's video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Check out Fireside Yankees on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and, of course, this YouTube page as well. All under the handle at Fireside Yankees, except for Instagram, where it's at fireside.yankees. If you want to check out our written content, we've got EmpireSportsMedia.com, the parent company of Fireside Yankees, where we have all of our articles for not just the New York Yankees, but all of your favorite sports teams in New York and some other big market teams. Thank you again for tuning in. We appreciate you guys so much. Let's go Yankees, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, everybody.
Perfect.